Let's get into it. Let's talk about some football. The Dallas Cowboys. What a whooping they went through Sunday afternoon against the Detroit Lions. What was it? 47-9?
You hit it right on right on the head.
47. It got so bad during that game, offensive linemen, 300-pound guys looking like wide receivers. Um Jerry Jones, of all days of an embarrassment day, on your birthday. On your birthday. You cannot make this up. On the day of your birthday, your team, your Dallas Cowboys, got embarrassed by the Detroit Lions. It wasn't even close. David Montgomery and Jameer Gibbs ran through that defense. They set up play action. Jared Goff just picked apart that defense. I mean, and on the offensive side of the football, you can't do anything. You can't run the football. You can't do anything on the offensive side. You don't have a running game anymore. And we're going to get into that because Jerry Jones, I'll say this, and I'm going to keep on saying this, man. The Dallas Cowboys, they ain't going anywhere as long as Jerry Jones running the show. I've already said what I've said before about Mike McCarthy. I don't want to regurgitate, but I've told y'all how I feel about Mike McCarthy. Jerry Jones got into it with a couple of radio hosts on his on 105.3 The Fan. That's his weekly radio appearance that he makes. He even threatened the jobs of the hosts on the show. Here's the quotes from Jerry Jones. Listen, let me tell you what I'll do about it. I will let us sit down and look at the decisions we've made over the last several years, okay? I'll look at it. Now, if you think I'm interested on a damn phone call with you over the radio and sitting here and throwing all the good out with the dishwater, you have got to be smoking something over there this morning. I'm not. And I really don't. And I don't even want our listeners listening to me talk about this is not your job. Your job isn't to let me go over the reasons that I did something. And I'm sorry that I did it. That's not your job. That's not your job. Or I'll get somebody else to ask these questions. No, I'm not kidding. And he went even further. You're not going to figure out what the team is doing right or wrong. If you or any 5 or 10 like you need to come to this meeting that I'm going to today, the 32 teams here. You're geniuses, okay? Y'all really think you're going to sit there with a microphone and tell me all the things that I've done wrong and without going over the rights? And this is the problem with the Dallas Cowboys. This is the problem because as long as Jerry Jones is running the show, you ain't going anywhere. And look, we could talk about the players, we could talk about the coaching, but Jerry is the main culprit in all of this because Jerry, the radio hosts, they're just doing their job. They're doing their job, Jerry. This is not therapy session where you get to lie down on the couch and cry and express your emotions or anything like that, Jerry. They are just asking you questions. They're not asking you private or personal questions. You could have addressed things in the free agency. You could have addressed Derrick Henry. You didn't do that. You could have addressed getting a running back in the draft and Blake Corum. You didn't do that. Your offense right now, without CeeDee Lamb, putrid to say the least. And then if you look at your defense on Pro Football, I'm looking at the numbers right here on Pro Football Reference. Okay? I'm not making this stuff up, Jerry. Your defense is just not that good, my man. It's just not that good. It is actually abysmal. To say the least, right here. Sorry. Team defense. In team defense, the Dallas Cowboys are 29th in team defense. They are 20th in passing defense, and they are 26th in rushing defense, according to Pro Football Reference. We've seen the Dallas Cowboys giving up big rushing yard performances. Week 2 against the New Orleans Saints, week 3 against the Baltimore Ravens, and last
Mm-hmm.
week against the Detroit Lions.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry, Jones, the way that you responded and treated those radio hosts, that's an indication as to why the Dallas Cowboys ain't going anywhere. And I echo to what Shannon Sharp said on First Take. The problem is Jerry. Jerry looked down on them. They're like, "Who are you to tell me what I'm doing?" Questioning me about the job that I'm doing. That's your problem. That's the problem right there. Yes, we could look at the players. Yes, we could look at the coaches. No one is absolving the players and the coaches. But at the same time, Jerry, you're responsible for putting forth this team. And I'll say it. The worst thing that ever happened to the Dallas Cowboys organization when he fired Jimmy Johnson, got in Barry Switzer, and won a championship, because that gave Jerry the validation. I don't need a great head coach. I don't need a great GM. I don't need all the right ingredients in order for me to win. I'm going to do it my way. You haven't won a championship, Jerry, since the last time, since what, 95, 96 season. Most of us were kids. Champ was about 7 or 8 years old. So was BRF. I was 2 going on 3. So, Jerry, you got the bye week. And, oh, by the way, the schedule ain't getting any better, because next Sunday, you got the 49ers. You got to deal with the Eagles twice. You got to deal with Washington twice. You got to deal with the Giants in Thanksgiving. You got the Falcons you got to deal with at Atlanta. So this is no easy thing. And I think with the Dallas Cowboys, what they're going to have to do, heck, if they want to tank for the rest of the season and try to get something, hey, you might as well, because your offensive line, you can't protect Dak Prescott, and your defense is just awful. That's all I'm going to say, man. The biggest problem with the Dallas Cowboys is Jerry Jones. So, Champ, I'm going to let you go. What's your thoughts regarding the Dallas Cowboys?
Mr. Jones, come on, man. Mr. Jones, come on now. Don't go on the radio acting all big and bad and huffing and puffing with wind in your jaws. That ain't necessary. I'm going to just be real. Look, we all do wrong. But the thing is, I'm going to steal Swagoo's thunder a little bit. It's kind of like when you come home and you show your mama all them A's, but she see that big old F in math you got on your report card. It's not that she don't acknowledge the A's you made. She see that big old F you made. And in the case of Jerry Jones, those F's are looking very, very huge. It's looking huge. The thing is this. You fell behind. Look, the thing is, and I've said this before, if you don't want to be criticized, don't be in the spotlight. Because you're going to be criticized, especially when you're with a glamour team like the Cowboys. I don't understand why he just can't understand that there's going to be a lot of criticism. Now, is it unfair to say, hey, the expectations are unrealistic when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys? We're going to win the Super Bowl every year. No, it's unrealistic. It's very unrealistic. But at the same time, it's your job as the owner, as the general manager, to put things in place in order to give people like my mother that hope, who is a Cowboys fan. And the thing is, it doesn't seem like you've done anything to give them hope. In the past few years, every team in the NFC, teams who didn't have, in the great words of someone famous, no chance in hell in order to make the playoffs, have surpassed you. When you think about the Detroit Lions, they have surpassed you. When you think about the Green Bay Packers, they had to go through a momentary rebuilding period. They have surpassed you. You think about my Atlanta Falcons, they have surpassed you. When you think about in your own division, it took Washington to get one quarterback to surpass you. That's how quickly teams have caught up with that mediocre middle of the pack team that you have. It hasn't taken them any time at all. And the thing is, if you know you can't stop the run, why didn't you go out there and get you a run stopper? If you know you don't have a running back, why didn't you go out there and get it? Seems like to me it's something either you don't care or something bigger here is at play. Because the thing is, you don't say you want to win and then don't go get Derrick Henry in free agency. You don't say you want to win and don't draft a Blake Corum who was available to you in the second draft to piggyback off of the great PSP. You don't say that, hey, we got some of the players on the bench that can play and not urge the coach in order to play them. What are you doing? And to threaten those guys' jobs like you did, hell, I ain't gonna lie to you, I'd quit that damn day. I own the damn air. I ain't bullshitting. Oh, you want to get somebody else here? How about you do it right now? I'd have took that shit off and left it right there. There you go. Because the thing is, if you're going to threaten me for doing my job, then guess what? I don't need to do it. And the thing is, if you don't want to be criticized, do what you're supposed to. And the thing is this, when you do it, and we all learn this as kids at an early age, if you want to keep folks off your behinds, do what you're supposed to be doing. It's as simple as that. Every time you look up, the 49ers are making trades. Every time you looked up this year, the Atlanta Falcons were making trades. Every time you looked up this year, guys who were Super Bowl contenders last year, they were making moves in free agency. You saw your team was not that good in order to get past the first round last year. Yet you still trotted that same team out here this year. Now it's even worse. Guess what? What have you done right? The thing is, this is a what have you done for me lately league. We all are going to remember Dallas Cowboys back in his glory days with Jimmy and Barry, and we're going to remember that forever. But the truth is, ever since the last remnants of Jimmy Johnson's team, because make no mistake, that was Jimmy Johnson's team, has left the Dallas Cowboys, none of the moves you have made have contributed to bringing championships there. Granted, you made a lot of big moves, but which one of those moves contributed to you bringing home a Super Bowl ring? None of them. You can go back to the Keyshawn Johnson trade. You can go back to the Terry Glenn trade. You can go back to him picking up Eddie George. You can go back to him picking up T.O. You can go back to him picking up and even releasing DeMarco Murray in order to pick up Ezekiel Elliott just a year later. None of those moves have contributed to you winning a Super Bowl. And if you really want to be honest with you, if it wasn't for your son, Steven, you might be even in a worse hellhole than you was originally in now, because you was about to draft Johnny Manziel over Zach Martin, who's arguably one of the greatest Cowboys and greatest guards of all time. So if anybody needs their job threatened, unfortunately, it's you. You can't run from yourself. And that is why you see the Cowboys in the state that it is in right now, a laughingstock. They are equivalent to my Los Angeles Lakers. They are equivalent to that. I've said that plenty of times. Unrealistic expectations. When the boss is asked about something, they say the buck stops here. But when they're often questioned about it, it's often a lot of hot air and wind. So, Jerry, you got to get it together, man. The thing is, look, we all recognize that, hey, every year is not going to be the most magnificent year in the world. But the thing is, you have to make it. The change starts with you yourself. And if you don't want to bring in a strong-minded coach like a Bill Belichick, like anything like that, then guess what? Hey, be prepared for the criticism, because people are going to be looking at you the entire time if you don't have a strong-minded head coach or general manager. It's flat out ridiculous when you think about all the things that it's a constant cycle. It's a constant cycle with the Cowboys. We them boys. Then we get to the playoffs. Oh, next year gets here. Okay, when is that one move going to come where you know you need to make a move and you make it? Right now, if anybody needs to be on the phone about Max Crosby, it needs to be Jerry Jones. It needs to be Jerry Jones. You have, because you have some of the, let's just be honest with you, those quarterbacks that is your division rivals, they're not in the pocket quarterbacks, they're scramblers. Even Daniel Jones. So you don't have the right kind of pass rush because DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons are injured. You're decimated. So if anybody needs to be on the phone with the Las Vegas Raiders, it needs to be you about Max Crosby. But yet you're not on that as of yet. And quite frankly, you better be glad of one thing and one thing only. You better be glad that the Washington Commanders don't have a good line. Otherwise, you'll be blown out the water even more for the next 10 years. So, Jerry, if you're listening to me, get it together. The thing is, it's reporters' job to ask you questions about stuff that, hey, might not necessarily be comfortable. Hell, when you're the figurehead at a job, you're gonna be asked a difficult question. You're the owner of the single most popular team in the world, the Dallas Cowboys. Yet there's no championships in the last 30 years. What franchise do you know that has been deemed historic in any sport that doesn't have a championship in the past 30 years? I will wait. Or at least have appeared in a championship in the past 30 years since their last championship. I'll wait.
BRF.
I mean, what did Jerry Jones expect those reporters to do, man? I mean, damn. If you want to sit in therapy session, he could take his ass to Dr. Phil or like him. You know what I'm saying? I'm just keeping it 100. I'm keeping it 100. Like, I mean, because you got to look at it from their perspectives. I mean, who are they to question him if they're Dallas Cowboys fans? They're Dallas Cowboys fans who haven't seen you won a divisional playoff game since 1996. You ain't been to an NFC Championship game since 1996. I mean, what do you expect? How do you expect them to think? How do you expect them to react? And it's like you sound like an old past your time sore loser is what you sounded like in that interview. It's what you sounded like. And like, I mean, if fans are paying their hard-earned money to watch you play, to go to these games every week, to watch the product you put on the field, and you're looking the way you looked against the Detroit Lions, whom you smoked last year, and then they circled you on the calendar and decided, hey, we're gonna get that lick back. I hope you know that. And they were beating them so bad, they ran a hook and lateral with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Penei Sewell, their offensive tackle, who the only reason why he didn't score was because they called it back because of an ineligible man downfield. So don't sit here and talk to me and get defensive about why people are questioning you. I mean, it's like for every good move you've made, and it's not like you haven't had really, really good football teams. You've had really, really good football teams over the past 28 years. But what do they all have in common? None of them have been to an NFC Championship game since 1996. That's what they all have in common. So there's common ground here. And that common ground at the end of the day, whether you like to hear it or not, Mr. Jones, I'm going to piggyback off of Champ because I'm going to call him Mr. Jones too. It's you, good sir. It's you. So all I'm going to say is you either need to look at yourself in the mirror, swallow some pride, and actually do something about this organization, or just step out the way and let your son Stephen Jones deal with it. Because like Champ said, Johnny Manziel would have been a Dallas Cowboy had it been up to Jerry Jones. Thank God they drafted Zach Martin, who's probably a first ballot Hall of Famer when his career is said and done. He's one of the greatest guards in the history of the sport. He's first ballot when he's done. It's like he's one of those owners, kind of like what the New York Yankees were, for a while. All about hitting the home run, the big free agent signings or the big trade acquisitions, not necessarily about, he I mean, hey, don't get me wrong, he got some hits in the draft. I mean, he got Zeke, He got CD. He got Micah Parsons. He got Trayvon Diggs, albeit a one-hit wonder. But that's another story, neither here nor there. But even still, it's not like he's had bad teams. It's just like I don't know. It's like something's always off. I mean, like you know what I'm saying. He had Bill Parcells at one point, but he even tried to control Bill Parcells, and the team wasn't necessarily as strong-minded to match his mindset. Or like with even with Wade Phillips, who's one of the most underrated defensive coordinators in the history of the game. Wade Phillips kept good defenses in Dallas, but it's like something was still missing because you didn't might not necessarily have the greatest offensive pieces or whatever, and it's like something's always been missing that's held them back, and that ultimately revolves around Jerry Jones making the decisions at the end of the day. Instead of always being about your box office, being about your tickets, go out and build teams. I promise you. I promise you. If you build winners, those fans are going to come to those games and they're going to be excited to watch you play. Fans aren't excited about you because, quite frankly, you suck. You're not good. Your team is not good. Your team is not good at all. I mean, and it's not like you're losing close games. You're getting choked out. You're getting thrashed. You getting destroyed. I mean, the Saints put a beat down in your house. The Ravens, albeit they took the foot off the gas because you made the game close, that game was not as close as that score indicated. They put a beat down on you. And then the Detroit Lions with the beat, I mean, that was a Goldberg Dolph Ziggler beat down. That's how bad that was. That's how bad that was. That was bad. And it's at the point where it's like PSP, remember the podcast where you talked about the Dallas Cowboys, you were talking about Mike McCarthy, and you asked a question, and I just kind of was like, "Who cares?" That's
Mm-hmm.
how I feel. That's how I feel at this point. That's honestly how I feel at this point. Until they show me that they're taking things seriously and they really want to try to contend for not only just the NFC East title, but to get to a Super Bowl, to win an NFC championship, to get to the Super Bowl. I don't care at this point because they're just going to stay where they are. They're going to stay stuck in the mud. They could tank the rest of the year, and they could go get like a. Honestly, if I'm them, I'm trying my. I'm not letting another franchise in the NFL draft. I'm not letting nobody else touch, sniff. I'm talking about poke. Ashton Genty out of Boise State. I'm not letting nobody else get him in the draft. But knowing the Dallas Cowboys, they will find a way because it's the Dallas Cowboys. I'm not letting nobody else touch it. Ashton Genty. Can you imagine him? I mean, just come on, man. If you get him and you develop a new three-headed monster of him, Dak, and CD, you got something. And then just build your trenches back up. You got something. But I don't trust them at this point. I don't trust them to be competent. And it's like I said, and I'll end it here. Don't talk to me and don't get defensive when you haven't even won a divisional playoff game since 1996. Any fan with a right sense of mind frame, they don't care about your box office, your tickets, your box office, your revenue, and all that other stuff. Cause what good is it doing if you're not winning playoff games? I mean, the Green Bay Packers have more playoff wins in AT&T Stadium than you do. That should tell you something.
Hell, even the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they've won a couple of Super Bowl rings in this century than the Dallas Cowboys. So that should tell you something. But Grant, you wanted to hop on, man. Appreciate you for hopping on. What are your thoughts about the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones?
Good to see y'all. It's been a minute. It's good to see you, BRS. Shout out, champ. It's good to see y'all, boys. Before I begin, I got some news for the pod. It's a personal thing I'd like to say. Yesterday, I just signed the lease on my new apartment. So
Oh,
I got a new
nice.
place to stay right after I get out of college. So, I'm excited about that. Figured I'd
Yes,
let y'all
sir.
know that. Figured I'd let y'all know that. But it's good to see y'all, boys. So
That's what's
Hey,
up.
I'm
we
a,
celebrate. Hey, we celebrate wins here, boy. That's what I like to hear.
I'm happy.
Absolutely.
I'm happy. I'm happy for it. But look, I think Champ and BRF, you basically said it. I'm gonna try to keep composure, and I promise I'm not gonna swear when I say this. I'm gonna try to keep it clean. What's so frustrating about this is that this is something we've known has been a problem, and no one in that organization has decided that this is the time to change it. You lose to the Saints, get blown out to the Saints at home. That should have been at least a warning flag for people where you said, okay, something's up. Then you have this Detroit loss, and you watch how bad it gets. And maybe this is Jerry Jones's warning to, I don't know, wait 3 hours before the season starts to pay your quarterback the highest paid QB contract in NFL history. Maybe this should have been your reminder to actually go all in the offseason, pick up a player like Derrick Henry, like you said you were going to, and going all in. Maybe this was your warning shot for you to understand that you need to be able to keep the players that are keeping your team afloat right now. But it's frustrating because this all just sums up one thing. It's no accountability. He's refusing to admit there's a problem. He's refusing to understand that he is making these problems worse. And he's refusing to understand that it may be time for him to walk away. Granted, I understand when you own an organization like the Dallas Cowboys, and I feel like in his eyes, he thinks there's nothing wrong, but the on-field product is horrible. The defense against Detroit had their worst rushing day I've seen from that Dallas defense. I think they said that's the fourth worst loss at home that Dallas has had.
Yes.
And the
in
top
franchise
three,
history in
and
home.
the top, and I think 3 of them have happened in the past, or 2 of them, excuse me, 2 of them have happened in the past year. It's honestly gotten to a point with Dallas where I just don't feel bad anymore, because you should have prepared for this. But Jerry Jones, again, refuses to take accountability for his actions, refuses to make the right choices, and refuses to understand that he may need to step away. Granted, and in my eyes, if I'm a Cowboys fan, you should be fed up, because you guys are what? In an NFC East division where the Eagles are shaky. They're playing they're on and off every week. You have a Commanders team that's shocking all of us right now, playing at a very exceptional level with a top quarterback. And then you've got the Giants. The Giants are the Giants. But you, in a division where you have an opportunity, to seize the East and try to at least make the playoffs, you guys are playing horrible. And at this point, I don't even know if they're going to make it to January. Like, do you think the team, the way they're playing right now, is going to make a playoff berth with this?
No, they probably have a better chance of getting a top pick.
Yes, I agree with you too. And, at the end of the day, if Dallas wants to succeed, we all know this answer. Jerry's got to go, but he's not leaving. And going back to the radio thing real quick, I went and heard that whole interview, and I wanted to hear it in my ears for the first time, because I felt like if you hear it, it's going to make more sense rather than trying to take clips from it. So I listened to the whole thing. These reporters are asking him basic general questions, like any fan radio station, sports local station would ask. And when they ask him about the product, he's getting defensive. You know what that sees to me? He now knows that what he's doing isn't working, so he's trying to backtrack, and he's trying to make it seem like everything's fine. And he's like, well, if y'all don't think I'll do the right job, y'all can do my job for me. They don't want to do your job. We just want a better product on the field. And if you want to keep continuing doing what you're doing, that's fine. You're just going to sink this team worse and worse, and then you're not going to have another Super Bowl, and you're going to wonder why when this team has a losing record and they're struggling in this division and they don't make it to the postseason. You're going to be like, what's the problem? And you have to look at what happened these first 6 weeks. Something's got to change, people. And it's either you tell Jerry Jones he's got to go, or you continue to watch the Dallas Cowboys become the Dallas Cowgirls. But that's all I got to say on that.
I'll say it before, man. It's Jerry. Players, coaches, let's not absolve the players and the coaches because again, they have to do their job, their responsibilities, and they're not living up to the expectations. But the bigger problem is Jerry. And I've told Cowboy fans after that playoff loss, they talked about firing Mike McCarthy, getting Bill Belichick, getting Jim Harbaugh. That wasn't going to happen. No head coach with cachet or a proven commodity is going to coach this team as long as Jerry Jones is running the show. Hell, the Cowboys got a better chance having Brandon Staley as their head coach. That's how I feel that Jerry. I'm serious, champ. I'm serious. I'm not joking. I believe that Jerry Jones
Ooh.
one day he may fire Mike McCarthy, and guess what? He may hire Brandon Staley. Because guess what? Jerry's going to have a relationship with guys that he likes, guys that he can tell what to do. Explain why Jason Garrett kept his job all these years. Because they like each other. Hell, he even brought Mike McCarthy over to the house for beer and nachos. So if you could impress Jerry by taking him to the crib for beer and nachos, hey, and all y'all, we hit it on the nail. Jerry, your problem is your complacency. These were needs. These were things you should have addressed in the offseason. You didn't do that. You rested on your laurels. And look what's gotten to you. And you know what? Speaking of the Commanders, and I'm glad you mentioned the Commanders, Grant. I've been very critical in the past about Daniel Snyder and the ownership. That's no longer the case anymore because Washington, we're now in a new direction with the new ownership with Josh Harris and Magic Johnson. We're going somewhere. All we just need to do is improve our offensive line. You look at the Eagles, I still trust Howie Roseman. He's still one of the best executives in the game. Unfortunately for them, they did lose one of their offensive linemen. He's going to be out this week. Eagles, they've had injuries and stuff like that. And when you look at the Giants, they've made some good moves in and obviously in the offseason with Malik Neighbors. I still don't trust Daniel Jones, but I think they have a good enough defense. Jerry, man, but the problem is on Jerry. And when the problem is he's too involved. He's the owner, he's the general manager, he's the president, he's the pastor, he's the preacher, he's the leader. It's like he's everything to the Dallas Cowboys. And that's just the problem, yo. It's like, Jerry, ain't you gonna sit back and allow people to do the job? But that's the problem with Jerry. He won't do that. Jerry is not willing to sacrifice. Jerry wants to win, but as long as it's his way, he's not going to do what's conducive for the Dallas Cowboys. And after this season, I spoke to one of my good friends. He believes there's a chance we can get Bill Belichick for the Cowboys. And I'm like, no,
It's
you're
not
not.
worth it.
You have a
'Cause he's
better
gonna want
chance
the
getting
same
Brandon
manager.
Staley. You have a
'Cause
better
he's gonna
chance
want
getting Brandon Staley.
Because you think about it too, PSP. Even if you do hire Belichick, Belichick's just gonna want the same higher management role like he did in New England. And if you think
And
Jerry
Jerry ain't gonna do
Jones is
that.
gonna have that, no, he's not. So
Jerry ain't gonna do
Jerry
that.
Jones, no. Jerry
That's
Jones,
gonna
Jerry Jones,
that's gonna be like
yeah, exactly.
UFC fight every weekend in that office.
Yeah,
You know,
Jerry Jones isn't going to want to. He's not going to want to. He's not going to want to give an opportunity for Bill Belichick to be the coach and the GM like he was in New England. It's not going to happen. Oh, and one more thing though, champ. I don't want to get your hopes up about this because I know how you talked about if you were Jerry Jones, you would you would get Vegas on the phone for Max Crosby. You know how we always talk about, players and who they follow on Instagram and all that other stuff. Guess who Max Crosby followed on Instagram over the last day or so?
who?
He's followed a lot of Atlanta Falcons on Instagram. So just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there.
It's time
Terry
to go to
Fontenot.
Magic City.
Terry Fontenot. If you listen to me right now, you might want to get them Vegas boys on the phone. You might have a deal work. You might have a deal for you. Max follow some Falcons on Instagram. Just saying.
Time to go to Magic City.
Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, champ, I would not be surprised at all. Jerry Jones hires Brandon Staley, and if he does,
That's a Jerry Jones move. That's a Jerry Jones move.
You know what?
You hit it right on the head.
If he does do that, then there's no more hope. Because the thing is, you saw how putrid he was. I mean, and that is a kind word. I'm being kind when I say that about Brandon Staley. You saw how putrid he was when it came to the Los Angeles Chargers and that and that team he had out there. They were putrid. So if you were to do that, I understand giving coaches a second chance, because Raheem Morris, he's a second chance coach. Dan Quinn, he's a second chance coach. There's a lot of second chance coaches in the league. But if you were to do that, yeah, you need to really check your inventory because not a lot is in there.
Mm-hmm.